Hello and welcome to The Connection Compass. I'm your host, Andrea Louise Evans. In today's episode, I'm joined by life and business freedom coach Aimee Scullin for a beautiful conversation about spirituality, self-trust, and finding the freedom to become who we truly are. Aimee shares her journey from personal development and traditional therapy into human design, the gene keys, and deeper spiritual exploration, including the profound awakening she experienced after becoming a mother. We talk about learning to trust our intuition, breaking patterns of self-sabotage, moving from victimhood to freedom, and recognizing that the power we often search for outside of ourselves has been with us all along. We also explore love, abundance, finding joy in uncertain times, and giving ourselves permission to do what we love. Because when we stop forcing and start living in alignment with who we truly are, life can begin to flow in a very different way. Hello, Aimee. Welcome to the Connection Compass podcast today. For our listeners, please could you share a little bit about yourself?
Hello, I'm super excited to be here. I shared with you before tonight that this is actually my first podcast interview, so I'm like really excited, but also a little nervous. Although having said that, just by chatting to you now already, I've actually just felt, which is lovely. So professionally, I'm a life and business freedom coach, but I say professionally, I think actually fully embodying that as my purpose as well, actually. And I use human design, gene keys, and intuitive coaching to help people to align with their true selves and uncover the life of fulfillment that is actually, I believe, what we came here to experience. Yeah. And I'm a mum of one little cherub who's nearly 4. And we've got a poochie and my partner as well.
And before you came into this work, did you do something before?
So I've been a holistic coach since I was about 26, which is working out my age, coming up nearly 10 years now. And I found that because I was in a lot of pain in my 20s. But really, really what got me into it was looking for love. I found that my relationships were incredibly challenging and painful, and I'd tried lots of different types of sort of therapy before, and holistic coaching was something that really encompassed a lot of different, well, I guess it's in the word holistic, isn't it? Which really helped me heal. And I just found it so fascinating that I went into that. And at the time I was a personal trainer, so I'd gone down a very scientific sports science route and then was personal training. And when I brought in the holistic coaching and the inner work, if you like, to what I was doing in training, I realized that that was what got people the best results as well. And I was just always been absolutely fascinated by humans and how we're wired. And yeah, so I'd been doing coaching for a long time, and in the beginning it was alongside personal training as well.
I think that's it's just amazing that you come to that holistic approach at
Mm.
quite a young age. And so I'd like to ask you about that. Was that about the recognition that you weren't getting answers in the tried and tested, in what was seen the norm? Like when we're looking for love, we're told a story about how we
Yeah.
go about and how we get that and how we bring it into our lives. But if somebody's experiencing hitting brick walls,
Mm.
it's you then have to go elsewhere to look for answers. Would you say that was true for you? Is that how it happens?
Yeah, I found personal development much younger than that.
Okay.
Probably about 20. And
Wow.
that was, a lot of books, seminars, the kind of thing that you see in The Secret. I went to LA and went to Bob Proctor's seminar, did his course, got into loads of debt for that. So I was in this very much kind of personal development world, and a lot of that was saying things like, well, you've just got to know that you're really lovable, and you've just got to be honest, and what you attract, you're attracting what you are. So if you're scared and anxious in a relationship, then you're just going to attract more of that. And so I knew this. I knew I was sabotaging myself, but I didn't know how to stop it. And so then I tried a little bit more sort of traditional. I had some counseling. I had sort of more traditional therapy for a little bit. And do you know what? It might have had a little bit of an impact. I definitely think that these things, and after probably if I came to do stuff like that, they'd have a huge impact. But from where I was, I needed something much deeper. And the holistic coaching went right into ego parts and how I might have picked up all these patterns from childhood or even just ancestrally and these wounding and how and it helped me love myself and heal those little inner child parts. I think that was the biggest part of it actually. So I could come from this place of knowing that I was lovable, which then
Yeah.
actually changed the anxiousness that I was experiencing. Yeah.
Right. Okay, that's amazing. It's just and so can I go back a little bit further then?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what then drew you into the self-development world at that early age? Because most people at 20 are probably in the in the bars and the clubs.
Yeah.
And I mean, it might have changed now a little bit, but back then,
Yeah.
probably not.
Of the 2000 and teens, if that's what they're called. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and don't get me wrong, I actually was very much in the bars, and now I look back on those patterns and see that that was coping mechanisms, numbing out
Right.
was
Okay.
all necessary. But what was really interesting, what happened was I was traveling and I went to Cairns with a couple of friends and I met this started talking to this Australian lady at the bar. It's so random, but you know how like divine in
Yeah.
intervention? Yeah, that's it feels like that. And she was a life coach and she started talking to me about the universe and like all these things and guides. And honestly, at the time I thought she was nuts, but there was something about her that I loved. Oh, this woman is nuts, but she's really nice, like, that there was something about her energy, and I was super sensitive anyway. So I just loved sitting next to her, and I completely didn't spend the evening with my friends. I was just talking to this lady, and she introduced me to The Secret and Abraham Hicks. Don't know if you've heard of those.
Yeah.
And I found The Secret was like, "Oh, wow," and then when I listened to Abraham Hicks, it scared me a little bit because it was really like she channels guides, but that was kind of my first introduction to opening me up, and then she was actually super generous, and she did, a few coaching sessions with me because even then on that traveling trip, I was in a relationship with an Australian lad and I'd started feeling really anxious, and before then, I'd had a relationship that was what I understood at the time emotionally manipulative. And they're the terms that people told me, do you know, like, from some of the patterns, it was, controlling and narcissistic and all these words that we hear about a lot now. But I was really young and I didn't really like, I just knew it was painful. And I think from that and from various other experiences, I just for whatever reason, my life path was bringing up that pain into my actual daily reality, and it was mostly showing up as anxiousness and, like, a deep desire to be, like, loved. And, maybe I can't remember exactly why, but maybe I'd said something about that to this lady or something, and she just opened me up to this world. Yeah, so that was how it
Right.
started. And it was about 21, 22, something like that.
Ha That is amazing because I would say I mean, we all have different paths, we all have different journeys, don't we? But for me, I would say things started kicking off about 28, 27, 28,
Quite young. Yeah.
around, like, Saturn
Yeah,
return. It's almost like it came into my life to completely open up my world,
yeah.
but I wouldn't have said, "Oh, was I interested?" Maybe I was, but I just didn't think
Mm,
maybe it was for me to take it on board. I don't know, I'll have to think about I've not really thought about that before.
yeah.
I think there was always an interest there, but I think with it sometimes we see it as a power that other people hold and not the
Mhm.
power that we hold in ourselves.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And I think religion is let's not get into that actually, but I think that's how humans have distorted that message, yeah, that it's something
Yeah.
outside of you in through certain lenses.
And so when we talked about coming to do the podcast and we're obviously drawing stories, so what is the story that you'd really like to bring out into this podcast episode? What would you love to share with us and tell us about?
So I've had on my journey, particularly in the last few years, I've had some very, very profound experiences, which are very difficult to put into words, but if I could, it felt like spiritual awakening. And I guess you could say that, coming across holistic coaching and stuff like that, but that was a major transition in my life, but I still didn't realize how much baggage I was carrying around until 2020 and then 2022, and then for a few like experiences since then, which have just shifted me from, I think, believing that I am a spiritual being having a physical experience to knowing. Do you know?
Wow.
Does that make sense? And so holistic coaching was a really important part where I realized that all these gifts and skills for intuition was in me, and I had the power to heal, deep patterns, and I could help other people with it. And then in 2020, I came across human design, which showed me why a lot of those methods that I've been taught around manifesting, even right from the beginning, from when I met that lady, and that was like, wow, when I tried to apply it, it really felt like it didn't work for me. And when I discovered my design, it showed me why and how some of those things didn't work for me and why they felt heavy and uncomfortable, whereas to some people they felt easy and light and wonderful. And that absolutely fascinated me. And then when I had my daughter in 2022, that was when I went through a a big life challenge, shall we say, which triggered the I would say my spiritual awakening path, might help, might inspire in some way. So I had my little girl, and I remember, because I'd done a lot of inner work, I remember almost thinking to myself, "You're gonna do this really well." Now that in itself is a little bit of a like, there's a little bit of pressure you're putting on yourself there, which obviously I was totally unconscious of. I just genuinely did believe that, like, I was quite personally developed, and and actually now I realize that's a little bit spiritually arrogant. And that is one of my shadow patterns, which I'll explain what that is in a minute. So I had this wonderful first year with her, and then towards the end of that first year, I started developing this really itchy skin condition, which got really bad really quickly, and it was basically all over my body. My skin would break out in these like big wounds. And at first, I'd had eczema in the past, so at first I put it down to that. Basically pretty much ignored it. Then I was like, "Okay, this is getting really comfortable. It's now on my arms and my legs. Let's go to the doctors." And I got dismissed by the GP a couple of times, given antibiotics, which at the time didn't sit right with me, but I didn't listen to myself and my intuition and my feelings. I just took them because I was uncomfortable. And then it got worse, and so I ended up paying to see a dermatologist because at the time, the GP said they would refer me, but it was gonna be months and stuff like that. So I was like, "Right, let's just, go and pay for some professional help." And the dermatologist put me on more antibiotics for 8 weeks. So in
Wow.
total, I'd been on antibiotics for 10 weeks, which I don't know if you know much about gut health, but it's really terrible for your gut health. It kills all the gut biome, which have an effect in your happy hormones that are released from there. And it was all pointless. It wasn't an infection. And so I was in this place where I was like, now months down the line, it was absolutely everywhere, all over my body except for the soles of my hands and my feet and my face, weirdly. But my face had broken out in eczema, like really bad, really red. So I was in a very low place, and it was so uncomfortable. I couldn't wear any sort of like, I mean, even loose clothes was uncomfortable, but the thought of wearing underwear, for example, would have just not worked. And I was also breastfeeding, and I was looking after like a 1 and a bit-year-old and trying to like keep a business going, which it was very felt more like a side hustle at the time, actually. And I remember listening to a podcast, and this was about 4 or 5 months into this condition at this point, waiting for, referrals and starting to actually get some appointments booked in, some initial ones where they were looking at it. And I listened to this podcast by Jenna Zoe, who is a human design coach that I had done some studying with. And she was interviewing someone called Richard Rudd, or it might have been the other way around. Either way, he's the founder of the Gene Keys. And what I understood was the Gene Keys was all these gifts that we have in our human design chart. It's like a further or a deeper development of that. And so I started sort of being really curious, like, how have I not really heard of this Gene Keys before? I've been in the human design world for a few years now. And So I just decided to look up mine, and I did what you said you did earlier. You went onto the Gene Keys website, looked at my profile, and I went straight to the one in health because
Yeah.
and the prime gift I had in health was called the 55th gene key, which is the gene key of awakening. And it is the one right now that is causing, well, not causing, but triggering awakening across the whole planet. I don't know if you've heard much about this evolutionary
Yeah.
process that we're going on at the moment, but there's prophecies and, lots of channelers and astrology and human design and all these sort of systems talking about this big evolution that we're going through right now for humanity. And the 55th gene key is the energy that moves from victimization to freedom and liberation and,
Wow.
ultimately feeling free, living who as you are. And I just had this really like, oh my God moment where I was like, this is why. And everything shifted from that point because I stopped feeling like a victim and trying to grasp at the health industry to help me and get me out of this. Nobody knew what it was. And I flipped into, and don't get me wrong, obviously it took a while to heal, but I flipped my energy changed into this is happening for a reason. This is part of my journey.
Oh my gosh, I've got the spine chills like all over my like.
And it just reading that paragraph of that 55. So then I was in this, like, world of the Gene Keys, and I did so much study. I got the book and I did Richard Rudd's programs, and I was just absolutely blown away by it and by how I felt so it showed me, so each gene key has a gift and a shadow, and the shadow is our lower part of our nature, our conditioned nature, and it's like an archetype of human wounding, if you like. And by looking at those specific shadows and understanding them, it helps you become conscious of the ways that you're getting in your own way without even knowing it. So I
Wow.
didn't so even though looking back, I could see that I was in this sort of victim mentality, seeing it right there and then looking for it was like, "Oh my gosh,
Wow.
and the freedom of that is knowing, actually, no, you always have choice and you can choose how you respond and you can see things from this higher perspective that what if this is here for my benefit?
Mhm.
And then that was 20, so that was, yeah, about 5 months into it. So we were kind of early 2023. And then I was on this journey. And throughout there since 2023, particularly in the last 2 years, I've had these really profound experiences where it's just been like there is no doubt in my mind anymore about
Mhm.
spirituality and living a material life, and that is actually part of my purpose, which I've explored through my human design and gene keys as well. So I guess that makes sense. Yeah.
I take you back to 2020 because that obviously was a really profound year from everyone. Now, I have a theory about 2020. And obviously, pandemics happen. So I'm from a public health world,
Mm.
infectious diseases.
Mhm.
Pandemics happen, they come along. But there was something obviously very severe about the pandemic in 2020. And I have this theory that it was a time to go inwards, to
Mm.
draw inwards, an invitation to go inwards. And some people did, but then there was also this outpouring, this noise going the other way, going outward, outward focused. Look at what's happening to me. I don't know, not like, was it a mass victimization? I don't know, but there was just something very outward focused,
Yeah.
whereas people drew in. And I think over the past couple of years, there has been events that have happened around and across the world, and each one is inviting us to turn inwards. And whether people do or not, it's their choice. But
Mm.
I believe that it's through focusing inwards that we change the world. Once we change us, how we think, how we feel, how we see ourselves, our world will change. Does that something that resonates with you that from that 2020 point of view, would you say, of being invited inwards and
Yeah, massively, massively relate to that. So one thing that's really interesting from the Gene Keys lens in the human design lens is this idea that it takes 7 years to fully decondition. So
Mm.
2020 to 2027, when we enter the new era, will be obviously nice, easy maths, that one, 7 years. And this 55 talks about the destabilization that goes on in the beginning
Mm.
for the awakening, and I think that that beginning of 2020 was yeah, you speak to so many people who had big shifts from that year and often through massive challenge, but it's the massive challenge that grows us, isn't it? Uh,
Yes, it is. It's quite interesting. Sorry, I've just gone off
no, go on.
my track of thought. So I think what we've seen beforehand is we've seen society very much focused on the physical, mental, and emotional. In some aspects, I see spirituality that's performative,
Right.
but actually, the part that is often missing is the spirituality of deep reverence, of the spirituality of winning and that connection within to earth, nature, to ourselves, each other. And it's that we're being called to take more notice of, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think these things need to be embodied and need to be in the real world, in the mess of humanity and bringing it in and not people come at it from this superiority. And that's what I think you're saying with the performative. It's like this superior ego. And that again is just human wounding. And you could probably see that in their shadows. And I think it is about honoring whatever anybody's journey is, wherever it is perfect to them. But yeah, it bringing it into the physical, grounded into the earth, because we are the intelligence is in nature, and that's one of for me. I teach a lot and around prosperity now because when you're in nature, you can see the natural alignment. Nature prospers, and it never takes too much, but there's always plenty. And really, that's our natural state as well. And it's just the human ego and the way that our wounds play out, really. And I think that's what we can see sometimes in those performative spiritual.
People can express themselves however they want to express
Absolutely.
themselves, but it's just that the earth and the universe or whatever language you use, it's just calling for something more. It's calling for something deeper, more inward focused, more
Absolutely.
developing relationships with ourselves because I feel that that's where our joy is. That's where we're more likely to find joy. Can I ask you, when you the skin condition that you had, do you see that any connection to needing to nourish your soul, your spirituality?
Yeah, in a way. So what I really understand now is our bodies are communicating to us all the time, and the skin is this barrier. It's this barrier between you and the world. And for me, it was like it was like my soul like itching to get out. Like stop confining yourself in these boxes of
Okay.
who you should be and what you should say and how you should and just like be free. Like let go, open up. It's safe to fully be you. And that I would say has been the journey that I've been on. And like you said just then about it has to be this inward journey. Things don't we can't change the outside's a reflection of the inside. We when we run around trying to look for fulfillment outside of us, we'll fall
Yeah.
short. I believe, and yeah, the Gene Keys is a tool or a process that you can use to help you with
Yeah.
that as well.
And it's that recognition that the outside world can't free you. It's all
Yeah.
within, isn't it? And,
Mm.
once you start to engage in that inner work, you start to see yourself differently, how you talk to yourself, you start to talk to yourself differently, you start feeling more compassion, not just for yourself, but for others, and finding this connection within the earth.
Mm.
It stabilizes and grounds us and enables us to do that inner work. So, I'm just blown away.
I think that was, talking about the earth, I think that was something that was almost missing, that I feel like the difference between me reaching this other layer, deeper layers of kind of just believing to knowing. I feel like the holistic coaching side was still very intellectual, which I find therapy is as well, and it enabled it to be much more embodied because, like you say, when it's in your body, there is actually this, and this is what the Gene Keys talks about this energy field it within us of just pure unconditional love and what was the word that you used? Anyway, it's gone now. Compassion and just all of
Yeah.
that and joy is inside. And when we can recognize the ways that we are operating against that our natural flow and the natural flow of life, and kind of stop doing that, and you can stop doing it just by catching yourself, really. And obviously, sometimes there's deeper wounds that might need sort of more deeper healing, but and then it just comes out and you start operating and living from this place, like, energy-wise, it is operating at a higher frequency, but you do just feel just so much love.
And along with the compassion, that ability to forgive yourself and others, that building of the trust and faith within yourself, within life, and how when you do this, the outside world just changes naturally for you. You start to become more free, live more free, and more open.
And one thing that I've noticed, I mean, like I said to you before, I was always very sensitive, but one thing that I've noticed is the more I have expanded and aligned with that sort of unconditional love, the more sensitive I've become to anything that's not that in the world. And sometimes recently there was something that went into my heart, disturbed me a little bit because it actually helped me. Everything that comes now, I'm like, okay, it's here with love, even if it feels dark and heavy. So I'm open to seeing what that is, the lesson or the love behind it. And from hearing some sort of darker stories more recently, it actually helped me attain not higher level again, because that sounds, but but again, come to another layer of like understanding and knowing of the love behind these things. And but it also helped me have, again, another layer of compassion for my little girl self, who was so sensitive to the darker side of human nature and would be so affected by it. And it's kind of like being able to see, oh, that was always part of my design. Because in
Oh,
the
right.
Gene
Yeah.
Keys, when you look at your SQ, which is your heart center, that's showing you the essence of your hearts. When you look at the higher level of the gift, the siddhi or the gift that you have there,
Mm.
that is about your like deepest essence of how you bring love into the world, which is so beautiful. And mine is all about deep compassion and being able to hold that loving place
Yeah.
even in human suffering, because it's from that energy place that we can actually make a difference at, rather
Yeah.
being like, oh god, that's horrible, and now I feel powerless and terrible. Like,
That there is actually something we can do, but that something begins with us.
absolutely.
So, in your work, can I ask about the healing nature of the Gene Keys? You've told your story, but what other things have you seen out there as you've been working with people and the Gene Keys?
I think the biggest thing is this shift from thinking that things are happening to us that are outside of our control to seeing absolutely everything as necessary, as part of our higher purpose, part of the journey. And so one of the things that I do when I work deeper with people is take their 4 prime gifts, which in the Gene Keys you can see as the ones around the edge. They're your genius gifts. In human design, they make up your life theme. So they're a big influence over the energy or the gifts that you're here to express and share with the world as part of your higher purpose. And when we take our time with each of those, and then I'll go deeper with intuitive inner coaching as well, when there's, and that really does shift people into a timeline of self-confidence is probably the biggest thing, this inner trust, because it's all about trusting yourself and realizing the answers are within. And but also sometimes just seeing, oh yeah, that gift is in me. Oh, and this is how I'm getting in my way with this shadow. And then also just having that one-to-one space over a few months to do any inner healing or inner rewiring type work. That is, well, that was so deeply transformative for me that I was just like, I need to bring this into my work. So I always get people the Gene Keys book, and then I just guide them to spending time with their own Gene Key and their own kind of curious process, really. And it's kind of just works from within. It's quite
Uh,
clever.
do you see this work as being a teamwork between yourself, the universe, something greater, like a collaboration in terms of bringing it out into the work, almost like the universe, you, the work. You're like a
Yeah,
conduit of it.
I hear, kind of hear what you're saying. I think we're all we're meant to do what we love. And
Yeah.
the weird things that fascinate us and the things that we're pulled towards, it's not, for me, it's not an accident. And you can see that through human design and Gene Keys, and also just like, even if we bring it down to this basics of like the, the law of attraction stuff, it's like we we think that we need to power through with the other stuff because of the stories or the beliefs we have about that. Like, oh, this will make me money and that won't, or whatever. But like, one of my favorite questions when I meet new people is like, do you love what you do? Or what do you love about what you do? Because that's what you're meant to be doing. And this incredible when we actually give ourselves permission to do that. And obviously some people have all sorts we're all completely different and unique. So some people it will be many things that they love. But it's like things actually when we give ourselves permission to do that, not only do we feel really fulfilled and we're serving in the way we're meant to serve, things actually flow a lot nicer.
Wow. Yeah. So what's next for you? So what you're working on at the moment? What's your plans for the next 6 months or so?
So a really big passion of mine is retreats. And what's really funny is back then when I was trying to do all this like manifestation when I was in my early 20s, I saw myself doing retreats, which is funny because all of that stuff never felt like it was working. But I guess now it's come back full circle, and maybe that had always been a soul calling for me to bring what I know in a retreat space as well as the one-to-ones that I do. So I've done 24-hour ones for the last couple of years, and in October we're doing our first longer one in a collaboration with G, who's a financial advisor, but I find a very heart-led financial advisor. So we're
Yeah.
focusing on abundance and alignment from that place in the forest. And that's 2.5 days. So I'm kind of, yeah, finding my feet with retreats, and I just love it so much.
That's really beautiful. Do you have a favorite song? I always ask people if they have a favorite song because I love
Mm.
music. I like to add the music to the Instagram post.
Oh, I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Do I have a favorite song? Obviously not one that comes to mind very quickly.
Doesn't matter, don't worry.
Do you know what? I'm
But
gonna have to pull it up on my phone to remind me who it's by, but I listen to quite unconventional music, and it's
yeah.
very kind of alchemy, positive, sort of. So let me just pull up the one that came to mind then, but I can sing it, but I can't quite remember
You're welcome to
what
sing.
it's called. No. Um, so it's in my freedom playlist. And so this song is one of many that I love, and it's quite it if you really allow the lyrics to kind of sink in, it can be quite energetically transformative. Because I think when you say you love music, I totally resonate with that because it has a frequency to it, and we can use music to change our mood. But this one as well, this one I feel can actually heal and
Oh.
help you break free to give yourself permission to be you. It's called Phoenix by Katrina Rain.
Oh, wow, that's beautiful. I don't know if I've heard of it, but then you never know. Sometimes these days you just listen to music on like shuffle or,
Mm.
like the radio stations, and so yeah, I'm gonna have a listen to that.
Uh, yeah, there's
But
another artist that sort of her words are very, intentional with what she sings as well around, personal empowerment. So yeah, they're really great. I'll send you those ones too.
before we finish today, is there anything you'd like to say to our listeners? Is there any message that you'd like to bring forward or
I just feel if we are in an uncertain time right now,
Mm,
and I've noticed in me, in a lot of people in my community and around me, where we're going through it. And I think if you can come from it from the place of, this is showing me wounds, stories, beliefs, patterns that are not truly me, and it's just bringing it to the surface so that you can actually look at it and move past it. It's coming for your benefit to help you grow, and a lot more of us are really being pushed and called to evolve fast this year so that we can be part of the change from 2027, building this new era, this new th- coming from the energy of honoring our individual uniqueness and genius, and everybody having the space to do that. So the more people can align with that higher purpose and allow that evolutionary process that we're moving through right now, just know that you're gonna have a incredible positive influence on the world just by doing your own inner journey and having the courage to do that. Yeah, that would be it.
Thank you so much, Aimee, for being on the podcast today. It's been a beautiful episode. I've really enjoyed it. And thank you.
And if we can go to get your human design chart from my website as well, if anybody's curious about that. And there's little information on there around your design.
We'll make sure we put everything, all your details in the show notes and anything that you want to direct people to so people will be able to find it there. Thank you.
Thank you.
There was another great conversation on the podcast today. I feel it has an incredibly important message for us out there, that our spirituality isn't a power that belongs to somebody else or something outside of us. It is something that we can discover and experience for ourselves. And the importance of giving ourselves permission to explore that spirituality and bring us to a place of bringing things into our life that we really truly love doing. For more information about Aimee's work, please check the show notes. And if you're interested in coming to the live webinar on Wednesday, the 23rd of September, please check the show notes. I'll be talking about the Connection Compass, how it was built, grown, developed over a 10-year period, and how it can support us to have a relationship with ourselves. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Connection Compass. If you think this episode will help somebody else, please leave a review. And remember to keep talking, keep connecting for a more interconnected world. See you next time.